Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello and welcome. We are going to continue our discussion on marketing research. We were discussing about the research methodologies, and we discussed in brief the primary methods. We will be elaborating a little more on that. So, primary research, secondary research is the research by source of information, source of data. Then quantitative, qualitative is the methodology, and then by objective we do exploratory research, descriptive research, causal and experimental research. So, we will discuss a little bit about the market research by source of data, that is primary and secondary. As we have already mentioned, that primary methods can be done using 5 methodologies. One is survey, meaning you prepare a questionnaire or any media through which you would like to gather information from your target audience. So, survey is normally done through questionnaire. You write question, they respond, then collating the responses, you analyze the data and come to a conclusion or come to draw inferences. Focus group, that is you invite homogeneous people in a room. They have similar kind of challenges or aspirations. So, you can talk to similar kind of people in a room and then get insight. Interview, that is one to one process of getting deeper insight about market, means customers needs and aspiration and the level of satisfaction. It can be 1 to 1, it can be 1 to 2, 1 to 3, etc. But then it is not 1 to many, it is just 1 to 2 to 3. Then experimental and field trial. Experimental means you put some stimulation into the market, either you reduce the price or increase the price, or you spend more money in advertisement and see what is the reaction of this higher advertisement expenses. So, that is kind of a causal research. Another is observation. Observe closely, meaning you observe customers' buying behavior or their lifestyle also matters, meaning what kind of people are buying and why they are buying, you try to get to that. Moving forward, market survey involves several steps. One is make sure that every question is necessary. When devising a questionnaire, these are the precautions that one has to take. Keep it short and simple, because nobody has time to go through lengthy questions. Usually, majority of the people avoid responding to a questionnaire. If some people agree, then we should not bother them with lengthy question, twisted question, asking personal information or asking them to think deeper and then come up with a kind of a deep thought process, means respond with a kind of a argument response that is argumentative. So, we need to ask a straightforward question that has a straightforward answer. Only then people will be interested to respond. So, make sure that every question is necessary. Do not put unnecessary question. Keep it short and simple. Ask direct question. Ask one question at a time, so that then less confused. If they are confused, they will bypass the question. Avoid leading and biased question. Do not try to help them to come up with an answer, something like, don't you think that so and so party is not doing well. So, that is kind of you are pushing the answer into the mouths of the customer or the respondent. We should avoid doing that, then you get a biased answer. Speak your responders language, meaning the language that they understand well. Use response scale whenever possible. That will help them to come to a conclusion about a particular answer. Like you say that you put 1 to 10, you place your feelings about this, then they will put some 5, 6, 7, 8 that becomes very easy, but if you ask them to put a data on that without any reference or without any guidance, it becomes difficult for them to put. Avoid using grids and matrices that look so confusing, and they will kind of not respond, or they will put some data somewhere which are not a right representations of what they actually think. They might do something without knowing, or something being confused. Rephrase yes no question if possible, so that they have a very clear understanding of the question and the answer. Take your survey for a test drive, meaning you circulate the same questionnaire among the people you know, get their responses as to whether they understand all the question and is it okay. Here is an example of a twisted question. Suppose, just think that you are asking to a person, do you approve of smoking when you are praying? Means he is praying to God, and then you ask him that, do you approve that while praying you should be allowed to smoke, or you should smoke, something like that. The person is going to get annoyed. It is so kind of annoying, the question itself is so annoying, he may become furious. Rephrase the question differently and see the answer. You ask him, do you approve praying while smoking? The person will think, well, I am smoking, and if I pray, what is the harm in that? So, he will not be annoyed, he or she, and then you get an answer. You say yes, why not? So, phrasing the question intelligently will elicit the right answer. Right here in this case, right or wrong, difficult to say, but then that is what is necessary. Example of successful research. Unsuccessful research, actually successful research was Agatha Christie one. Unsuccessful research in case of Coke. In 1980s, they realized that Pepsi has come up with a sweeter beverage, and that is selling higher, and Coke is actually was losing market share. So, they thought, what has gone wrong? So, they did some market research. They did a blind test. They made a tastier, or say sweeter Coke, that they did not name that it is Pepsi, but they said these are two varieties of Coke. One is sweeter variety, another is not so sweet. The previous Coke was less sweet, the classical Coke was less sweet. Then in a blind test, majority of the customers said they like the sweeter Coke. So, they thought something is amiss about our whole strategy. So, we are advertising, we are spending so much of money, whereas customers like sweeter Coke, and that is why they are switching to Pepsi, because Pepsi is sweeter. So, what they did is, they after this experiment, they introduced a new Coke that was tastier in terms of sweetness. So, it was sweeter, and then they introduced that as new Coke, because they did not want to confuse the customer with the classical Coke. They did not say it is Coca-Cola, they said it is new Coke, but then to their surprise, sales went down. Even though all marketing research indicated that they should go for sweeter Coke, but then market went down. Why? Because people were emotionally attached to the classical Coke. When they found a new Coke, they thought, this is not my cup of tea, this is not my beverage. So, they switched to Pepsi. So, their sales went down, and then they asked the same question to customers again, and they realized that it is not the taste or the sweetness or anything, but the emotional attachment, the trust of the brand per se. So, again, bit of mistaken market research, bit of successful market research. They introduced another new Coke, saying that Coke Classic, Coca-Cola Classic, meaning the people have been given the understanding that we have brought the old Coke into the market, classic Coke. So, again they saw that sales went up. It is not the taste, but it is the connectivity. So, they spend more money in advertisement, and then eventually sales went up, which the Coke was not sweeter. Now, it is a little bit of comparison about primary, secondary data collection, data gathering. Secondary, if you remember, is gathering available data. You are not asking question to the people who are the source of the data, but you are gathering data that have been collected by somebody else at some other point. So, you can directly walk into the premises of an office of a database manager or database management organization. They are going to just pull some data and then give it to you. So, it is very quick, and because these data are being sold to many people, so it will come at a cheaper rate. So, your expenses is low, whereas this is not primary data. You do not know the accuracy of the data, and there is a time gap always, because the data was collected some time back. You are not asking the question directly to the audience. So, the benefit is it may be qualitative, quantitative, like someone published data on say purchase of some white goods. So, it will be quantitative, but otherwise if some data is not really objective, but subjective, so that is qualitative. Cost will be most likely low, time will be very short, because somebody is going to pull something from the computer and then give it to you. Suggestion, this will give you some bird's eye view or some ballpark estimate of a situation. Whereas, if you are collecting primary data, then the cost is going to be high, but you can have qualitative and quantitative data, accuracy is more, but then it is going to be most expensive. So, you are going to use 5 methods: number 1 survey, focus group, interview, experiment and field trial, and observation. Rest are all provided here. Next in the line is by methodology, market research by methodology. So, you collect quantitative data or qualitative data. This discussion is already done. So, we will be very brief on this. Qualitative research is exploratory in nature. They do not give numerical value, usually gathers data using focus group, triads, dyads, meaning interview between 1 to 2, 1 to 3, 1 to 4, in-depth interview. So, you get a qualitative assessment. You do not get quantitative assessment, because you are not talking to many people, you are talking to handful of people. So, you get a qualitative estimate, but if you want quantitative, you need to reach out to a larger audience, and it is uninterrupted because nobody is bothering, and you can respond to an answer. Then you ask a question, the audience respond to your new question. So, it is all you gain insight, then you devise your new question. Bulletin board, meaning there will be a board somewhere, people will come and write their opinion or responses depending on whatever question you ask. Ethnographic participation or observation, these are all less objective. Obviously, this is not really numerical. Quantitative research looks to quantify a problem, involves collection of data through surveys, like you survey through many people, say your total target audience is 1 million, you gather data from 1000 people, they kind of form a representative sample of the population. So, the outcome of that research is going to be meaningful and useful. You can use online or phone, paper, then points of purchase, meaning when people are buying, you ask question at that point of time, purchase transaction. And click streams, where people are clicking, why they means how frequently they are clicking, after clicking where they are going, you try to assess all of them. This is more objective, because you get data. So, by methodology, this qualitative and quantitative types of question, and these are the responses. Sample size is small and quantitative is large, because you need that number means as many people as you are talking. So, it will give some number, whereas in case of qualitative, sample is small, because you can interview only so many. Information per respondent is very high, whereas information through a questionnaire or whatever process you use will be very low, because if you load with lot of information in the question, the survey, this is going to be highly involving, nobody is going to answer. Analysis skill requires high in both cases. Type of analysis, this side is subjective, quantitative is objective, because you are dealing with real data. Ability to replicate, if you are asking many people, chances are very low that all people will say the same thing, whereas you are taking a survey involving many people. Now, you take the same survey involving another batch of people, chances are very high the result will be almost similar. The feelings, motivations of qualitative, the area means the attitude, these are factors that comes into that you can guess, you can observe, whereas in quantitative you can observe their choices, their frequency, their demographics, all this information which will be contained in the questionnaire. Benefits for qualitative over quantitative. So, qualitative is cheaper compared to quantitative. It probes in depth motivation, whereas quantitative cannot do that. Then often useful precursor to quantitative, meaning that you want to go for a quantitative research, but then you are not sure whether this particular audience or whether it is going to ultimately be meaningful, the outcome will be meaningful for the problem at hand. So, you do some qualitative research, you get some insight and you realize whether it is really going to be worthwhile to go for a quantitative research or not. If yes, go ahead and then do. Last one is by objective. There are three categories: exploratory, where you explore; descriptive, you try to describe or profile the market segment, or micro level at profile the customer per se. Then you do a causal research, give some stimulation and then see how it responds. Market research by objective. Exploratory, preliminary data needed to develop an idea. Suppose you think that you want to start some business in some area. So, rather than gathering data using lot of money, you can talk to some very small number of people closely. That suppose you are thinking of say spreading pesticide through drone. So, you talk to some farmers that look, these are the disadvantages of spraying pesticide using this machine, whereas drone has this advantage. Do you think if there is somebody, some entrepreneur offering the service of spraying pesticide using drone, you will be interested? Suppose 10 farmers, you talk to 10 farmers, they say why not, this is good, we are kind of will be enamored to have this, or maybe we wanted it yesterday. So, you immediately understand that that means there is a demand. So, going further with this idea will make sense. Then perhaps you start formulating plans to go for a elaborate research, like maybe focus group or something, maybe invite 100 farmers in a room and then start doing further research to know whether really they are going to buy and what is their affordability, etc., etc. Descriptive, it is describe an element of an idea precisely, like say we talked about 10 carat gold. It kinds of shine as good as the 22 carat, but then the life or longevity of the jewelry should be maybe a question. So, you try to describe this element of the idea precisely and then get information. As for example, with the target market, how large it is, how will it develop, the market size per se. So, you describe the market, or you describe at micro level a customer, either of the two. Causal, we have already discussed whether a kind of a product is price elastic, demand is price elastic or inelastic. Then you can increase price without the fear of losing market. For exploratory, the research design is less structured. You just kind of plan and then go ahead. Undertaken to gain background information on the general nature of the research problem, like say Ray Kroc did, of McDonald did. He just approached to McDonald asking question as to why their machine, their milkshake machine is going means they are ordering the milkshake machine repeatedly to get to know that their sales are actually increasing so fast. Clarify problems and hypothesis. You have a hypothesis, you have a minimum viable prototype, you want to test your hypothesis, you use exploratory research. It allows the researcher to define the problem more precisely, generate hypothesis for the upcoming study, meaning for further study. Uses secondary data analysis, experience survey, case analysis, etc. Exploratory research is unstructured and informal. Usually, no formal set of objectives, sample plan or questionnaires are involved. You just approach somebody. You know somebody that so and so is a target audience, approach him anywhere or maybe suitable to the convenience of the customer, and then start asking questions. It is undertaken to gain background information about the general nature of the research problem. No predefined set of procedure or and the nature of the research changes as the researchers gain information. Flexible. It is conducted at the idea stage. Exploratory research is simple, quick and less costly, obviously. Descriptive research is undertaken to describe answers to questions of who our customers are, what their liking is, where do they buy, when do they buy, or how do they use the product, etc. In order to know who our customers, what brands they presently are buying, etc., you use descriptive research. Two basic types of descriptive research is cross-sectional or longitudinal. Cross-sectional means it is a cross-section of people, different people in a demographic. So, you ask question to particular demography and another demographic. Longitudinal is temporal, meaning you ask same question at this point of time, then another point of time to same group of people or different group of people. So, you have a panel data, different people at different time. It is panel data, you get better insight. Cross section is population of interest at only one point of time. See, a magazine surveys a sample of the subscribers of different age group. So, at a particular time to understand what demographic are more interested in this kind of journal or particular kind of articles. So, at say today a particular journal comes and talk to students, say girls student, boys students. Maybe they get different kind of insight. So, they can come up with different articles. It is not temporal, there is no time specific, neither necessity of the data nor importance of the data. So, this is cross sectional data. Election data are mostly cross sectional. They do not care about how some political party may be interested, how the allegiance is changing over time. That is different. Longitudinal data is taken at a different time period of time, over a period of time. Data gathered from same sample units at different point in time is also referred to as panel data, as I said. Firms such as IRI, Nielsen have been maintaining panels consisting of hundreds of thousands of households for many years. So, periodically they visit this household to take data about their income, about the diseases that they were inflicted with, the kind of expenses that they are incurring, their change of lifestyle, etc., etc. So, suppose they are asking question about different brands that they are using, and they get a wonderful insight as they collect data, longitudinal data from the same group of people. Now, suppose you represent brand 1, somebody represent brand 2, 3, 4. Now, you may see that your sales is going up, but as at whose cost this sale is going up is an important data for you, as much as it is important for the brand which is losing market share. So, they would like to know who is gaining the share that they are losing, so that they can identify why they are losing, means to whom and what other people are doing to acquire their market share, so that they can do the same, they can take the same action and regain the market share. Like, look at the data that is displayed now. You can see who are losing market share and who are gaining market share, even though the market is same as 1400 all 3 point of time. Now, in causal market research, you normally ask questions something like, if we do this, then what? So, you do something like increase the price, decrease price, or you hire certain celebrity and advertise, and then you would like to see the impact of that advertisement. You spend x amount of money and see the impact, spend y amount of money, see the impact, then you try to relate expenses with impact. Like suppose you want to know if higher expenses on advertisement lead to rise in sales, percentage production in price leads to what growth in sales, or how sensitive is demand to price change. So, this kind of issues, this kind of responses can be obtained through causal research. Market research process in brief. This is a very systematic method of market research. Defining the problem, we discussed at the beginning, developing the research plan, what kind of methodology you are going to apply and how the data collection will be, what kind of data will be collected, then collection of the information per se. This part is the most or the costliest part in the whole process. Then analyze the data, what kind of analytical model you are going to use to analyze, what kind of inferences you are going to draw, and then communicate them through a presentation, so that the people that matter or the people who are supposed to use this information can make the sense of the outcome. So, defining the problem, it distinguishes between research type needed, exploratory, descriptive or causal. If a problem is vaguely defined, the outcome is going to be vague. That is why defining part is so very important. Research plan is also important. You plan wrongly, then you gather the wrong data or biased data, etc. Data source from where you are going to, whether primary or secondary, what approach to apply, what instrument, whether it is a questionnaire or something else, whether through telephone or through whatever. This is the planning that you do. The plan needs to be decided upfront, but you should remain flexible enough to incorporate changes moving forward, or you do lot of iterations for eliminating the error, maybe human error. Collection of data, as I said, is the most or the costliest part of this whole exercise. Comprehensive step by step process of market research. Market research apparently may sound like it's a simplistic thing, and then there is a tendency among entrepreneurs to neglect this for whatever reason, but market research actually gives so much insight about the customers' behavior, their requirement, their needs, and they may actually help you to design your product that will sell so very well on a sustainable basis, and that is what the business is. So, if anybody is careful about the business, they will do market research very seriously, and they will follow comprehensive step by step process. Establish the need for market research, define the problem. Is there a real need for information to make decision? What is the decisions that you are going to take? Review the environment and the context of the problem, define the problem, established research objective, determine research design, the research approach depending on the problem and objectives, identify information types and sources, primary and secondary, develop research plan, then determine methods of accessing data, how you are going to access the data, acquire the gain the data, receive the data, design data collection forms. Designing form itself is a subject. Form includes question, includes structure of the form. It can be so scientific that some people will be very successful in collecting data, some people will not be. Some people will collect the right data, some people will collect the wrong data, that will lead to a wrong inference, and eventually all the money will go down the drain. So, it is very important that design is done perfectly well. determine the sample plan and the size, how many people you are going to talk to, how many people you are going to receive responses from, collect data, analyze data, prepare and present the final research report, formulate a strategy, implement, repeat, and the process from 1 to 11 is repeated again and again continuously throughout the life of the business. Here are some of the established market research agents. Market research firms are many. In fact, in India there will be hundreds of them, but then one has to be very careful about selecting a consultant. Market research is not merely gathering data, processing it, and then the consultant can actually give some insight about the actions that is to be taken to troubleshoot particular situation. That is why you should talk to the right market research consultant. Make a thorough credibility check. Are they actually manipulating data, or they are really gathering data? Did their findings have clear linkage to the business objectives? Meaning that what is the credential? Meaning if they have already done some job, has some of their suggestions or advice yielded positive result? If they have good credentials, it makes sense to hire them. Marketing research is one part data, the other part consulting. As I said, they give you insight that you should take these actions. Satisfaction with consulting components of research is very low. It is about 49% of the people are satisfied about consulting part, meaning their consultancy about what actions to be taken. How rigorous is their process and analysis is another factor that you should consider before selecting. Counter check with the with their clients whether they are satisfied with the service. What quality of insight they generated? Can they communicate well? They have the data, but then they miscommunicate, that everything is done well, but communication is not well. So, ultimately yield is not well. Are they known for maintaining high ethical standards? If they are not, they will not do anything but cook up data and give you some insight, which will definitely be wrong. You must understand your business. You are in a particular business and a consultancy firm never got involved in that business, they may not do justice. Must generate actionable, measurable metrics. They should be flexible, meaning if you have some particular requirement, they should, means during the process also they should be ready to make changes. How much data is good enough? If you have heard about Pareto 80-20 principle, here is some elaboration. Pareto said that in production or marketing, manufacturing, in most of the things, several other things, roughly 80% of the effect comes from 20% of the causes. So, target those 20% that yields 80% of the information. You do not have to go to other 80% of the people spending another some 4 times more resources and time to get accuracy of 100%. It is not necessary. You get 80% by contacting only 20% of the respondents. You get a 80% idea about the market. That is good enough. In marketing, 80% of your sales comes from 20% of your customers. Talk to them, get 80% information about their satisfaction, and that should be good enough for you to make a decision. Look what Bezos talk about information adequacy. He says most decisions should probably be made somewhere between 70% of the information you wish to have. If you wait for 90% information, your wait will be too long, then the opportunity will be lost. The relevance of the data that you have collected, the 70% data or 90% will lose relevance. If you are good at course correcting, being wrong may be less costly than you think, whereas being slow is going to be expensive for sure, because the data will be almost like meaningless. You will go nowhere by waiting to gather 90% of the data. Try generating 70% of the information and make fast decision. More information may take huge incremental time and may overly increase the cost, whereas may not be meaningful. may not add accuracy. The new reality is fast and steady wins the race. We must be able to increasingly make more out of less. BCG group reports that only about half of core business decisions are driven by customer insights through research. That is the pathetic situation of market research being adopted by companies, meaning about half the decisions are taken not based on data, but based on gut feel or maybe at the most back of the envelope calculations, which is highly dangerous. So, people do that to their own peril. Business leaders should share the market research insights with employees at all levels. Otherwise, the very purpose of doing the research will be lost. So, you share information so that everybody is on board, everybody can take care to improve wherever improvement is necessary. This democratization of data and research would open the door for non-researchers to contribute ideas, engage with the research and ask questions, meaning everybody may come up with insight as to what we should do, but then if they have access to the data, they will know what is the situation, real situation. So, they will be enticed or motivated to come up with new insight which they are capable of, and they will share, and the company will be the gainer. Some references, a few comments on conclusion. Define marketing research, highlight the importance of marketing information at every stage of the company. Rest you can read. Thank you very much.